My first worry was, oh my God, my sister could be sick. Immediately, I went and got tested and found out 2 weeks later that I was indeed also positive for the BRCA gene.
Welcome to Waking Up to Life, 18 Minutes with Rabbi Josh, a podcast built around conversations with people in our community who have found enlightenment in their lives. While these events may not seem life-changing to you, our conversation today will reveal how moments in the world shape the way my guests see people and things around them. This conversation and insights from Jewish tradition may also change your life. And if not, it's just 18 minutes with me. So, l'chaim, to life. Today on our show, we welcome Lisa Soble Siegmann, who is the Director of Innovation, Collaboration, and Education at the Jewish Community Center of Metro Detroit. It is a pleasure to have Lisa on the show because, Lisa, you've been a friend and a colleague for many, many years, and I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
It's exciting to have you here because we've talked over the years about so many different subjects. Our families share similar ages and experiences in life, but there is a story that has really shaped the way you experience the world, and it is the discovery that you are a carrier of the BRCA-1 cancer gene. And I know that some of the experiences around that discovery have really changed the way you see the world. So can you share a little bit with our guest today about your story?
Sure. In 2008, my sister, who lives in Toronto, came in to visit, and I remember exactly where I was. I was in my kitchen, and it was during Sukkot, and she came into the kitchen, and she told me that she was positive with the BRCA, the BRCA-1 gene. At the time, I had no idea what it meant, and when she told me that she was been part of a gigantic gene study in Toronto, the biggest at the time in the world, that she had volunteered. She heard an ad on the radio, and they were looking for Ashkenazi Jewish women that would participate in a gene study. And she, like a nice person, just volunteered. Found out that she was positive. She came in to tell me, and no idea what it was. When I found out what it was, which could possibly be a death sentence, my first worry was, oh my God, my sister could be sick. Immediately, I went and got tested and found out 2 weeks later that I was indeed also positive for the BRCA gene. And I remember feeling like I was in a complete daze. I remember feeling, I had a baby, and I was pregnant at the time. No, I wasn't. No, take that out. I was not pregnant. 2009. So I found out that I was positive, and I remember where I was at that time. Dr. Alvin Schoenberger called me, and I was in one of my kids' rooms sitting on the rocking chair. I'm a person that moves very quickly. If those of you who know me, I like to get things done. I like to know about things, educate myself. So I went around and spoke to 14 different doctors and said, what would you do? And they'd say, well, what you can do is we can monitor you, or you can do this, you can do that. And I would say, well, what if it was your mom? What if it was your sister? And they said, well, we would have these surgeries. So the surgeries were a oophorectomy, which is a partial hysterectomy. They take out the ovaries because there was up to a 45 chance of that time of getting cancer. And to see the cancer, it would be way too late. So that was the first thing that had to be done. The second was a double mastectomy with reconstruction or not reconstruction, however people want to do it. So a few months later, I went and I had the oophorectomy, and it was a time of life that for me it was I wouldn't say it was fine, but it was 2009. I had 3 healthy kids. I wasn't at a place where I was desiring to have any more children. And so it made sense to do that and be that drastic. Then a few months later, I did the mastectomy, double mastectomy with reconstruction. And I didn't have to do any chemotherapy or any radiation. But what happened was a week later, after I got the pathology back from the double mastectomy, Billy Kestenberg said to me, "You just saved your life." And that was his quote, "You just saved your life." Because if you have breast cancer, you have, with the BRCA gene, it's very aggressive, up to an 81% chance of getting breast cancer. And they found stage 0 non-metastasized cancer in 4 areas. So I was really lucky. So I felt very lucky.
You, though, were not sick in any way,
No.
as far as you understood. So these are really dramatic decisions to make without having any indication that there was real sickness.
I just looked at the statistics, and the statistics alarming for me. And I had 3 young children. I wanted to be around to embarrass them as they grew older. And I wanted to make sure that I did everything I could to be healthy. And what's really important is that everyone gets tested, because my family would not have been tested in general. We didn't have a history of breast cancer. We didn't have those types of cancers that you would then look at and do a gene study. So it was just the fact that my sister happened to be listening to the radio at that time in her car that this all started.
So you learned, I'm certain, many lessons as you went through this process about yourself, about relationships with family. Is there a single overarching message that comes out of the experience for you now, looking back in the rearview mirror at the process?
That it's cliche to say, but every day is a gift, and don't take your health for granted. And people would be afraid to go get tested. And my response would be, if you have the gene, you still have the gene, whether you get tested or not. And you might as well be educated about it, and you might as well get tested, because it could save your life.
I think that that's an important thing to remember as we move through the world, that there are all sorts of things that could affect us negatively. To ignore them doesn't necessarily make them go away.
Right.
And to be more informed is more in line with the Jewish value of pikuach nefesh, which says it's our obligation to save life. And you certainly, in retrospect, believe you saved your own life.
I do, and I also have a brother, kids in my family. My sister's positive. Usually it's about 50%, because you can get it from either parent. We got it from my father, and what he said was it was not the gift he wanted to pass down. And he was devastated by the fact that he was the carrier. My one brother has it. My other brother's negative. So 75% of the siblings in our family have it.
And is it something that men should be concerned about beyond just the idea that they might be a carrier of the gene? Is there an issue for men in terms of breast cancer and susceptibility?
Susceptibility is the same 50%, but men obviously have a different issue than women, because there's different body parts. But men still can get breast cancer. So the statistics is low anyway for men to get breast cancer, but it does heighten the risk. And I know a few men that have gone through breast cancer, and it's really hard for them. Imagine wearing a bathing suit. For a woman, you just cover up. For a man, you cannot. Or you go to the gym. So it's very tough for men. They should absolutely get tested, and they can pass it on to their kids just as well as women can. And you can pass it on to your sons or pass it on to your daughters.
So speaking of your children, obviously you've had conversations with them. They're old enough to understand the nuances of your health concerns. How has it affected the relationships inside your home as you went through the process, and even now looking back?
Well, it was 2008, 2009. So my youngest, who's now 14, he was 3, and we had the hardest part for me was, how do you tell your kids? And so I became fine. I did everything I needed to be emotionally fine with what I was doing and what I had done. It was, how do you talk to your kids? So they went through it with me. We did it through a lot of laughter. Like we talk about, I could stop my implants with a bus, if I needed to save their life. We talk about, these are mine. They're not really real, but I paid for them. They're mine. We got through a lot of it with laughter, and we still do. So I think that was helpful, that I was healthy and able to talk to our kids through a healthy lens, and know that I was doing everything I could to be healthy. And I would say that I was a little different on the outside, but the same on the inside.
But that's always been your attitude in really everything you do. As a teacher, you use humor and positive energy to affect change within a classroom setting. I see you do it in a professional Jewish world here in Detroit, and it sounds like it also worked in the context of helping your kids deal with it in a serious way, but also making sure they understood that you were doing the things you needed to do to take care of your health and your body.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what about the surgeries themselves? Were the surgeries an easy decision for you, or was it a challenge to, especially the double mastectomy, to make that choice without real sickness at the moment?
No, because once I spoke to all the doctors, and it was clear to me that their choice would be to be radical. I really didn't have a problem. I really wasn't that sad about it. I was really wanted to make sure that I took care of myself. I nursed my kids. My kids were all through. They were all out of diapers by then. I mean, they were, they're kids. So it was an easier choice for me. Had I been in my 20s, it would have been, I think, really different. But I was older.
Older, and yet, as a woman, you had to grieve, I'm assuming, the stage of life that was the younger person that you were, and now you're this new changed body type. Did that bother you at all?
No, honestly, I've always been rather large, and I was really actually happy that I was smaller. And no, I like the way I looked. I was proud of the way I looked. I saved so much money in bras. I don't have to buy bras anymore, and that's reality. And I've saved so much money. Those are expensive, I don't know if you know that. They're really expensive. But I was really happy with my decision and was really positive about it. I remember me crying a few times just because there is a mourning period, and everything doesn't go away with humor. You can't bury it. So you had to live through the emotion of it and your body changing. And my husband, Tal, as you know well, he was incredibly supportive. He's like, I will do whatever you want to do. I remember a neighbor saying, what happens if your husband doesn't find you attractive anymore? And I'm like, well, she was challenging me to, are you seriously, we wanted to have a double mastectomy? And I was like, well, then he can go because, if he doesn't find me attractive anymore and I have to do this for my health, then that's not a real good relationship. So Tal was incredibly supportive, as he always has been.
So I want to transition a little bit in this conversation to the work that you're doing in the Jewish community as an educator. For those of you who don't know Lisa, she is one of the premier educators in Detroit and has given her life to song and teaching and Jewish values. So as you look back at that career in the context of what you've just described with regard to the BRCA gene, is there something that you now say, this is the lesson of the world? This is why I'm doing what I'm doing?
I don't think it has to do anything with BRCA. I think I've always loved working with the Jewish community since I was little. I've always, in everything professional, everything volunteer has always been the Jewish community. I love working with the Jewish people, and I love our heritage. I love our history. I love our culture. I love the religion, and I love the people. And I think it's important to pass it down. And I think it's important to have great positive, interesting role models in which to do that. So it's not because of BRCA. I don't think I love being Jewish anymore. I think I value life a little differently now because I had a big scare. But in perspective, I want to make the world a better place. I mean, I want to help people. I want to inspire people. I want to make people laugh. And I want to people, when they learn from me, to say, like, that was really worth my time.
Yep. So I hear you say that
I
it's
really
separate,
got something out of that.
but in many ways, those two values come together. The joy that you bring to handing from one generation to the next, Jewish teaching, Jewish understandings, Jewish learning, is not so separate from what you are suggesting we can do for our families by taking care of being tested for genetic issues, because we are indeed handing from one generation to the next our genetics, which as the Jewish people is sometimes convoluted with who we are, right? Unfortunately, we are a people who have many genetic diseases associated with our heritage. And just as we're handing that down, we're handing down lessons of life, attitudes, and that's really what you're doing as a teacher, I assume.
And that's why you're the rabbi, because that was beautifully put together. I agree with you.
So as you look now on having come through this challenging time in your life with such a positive attitude, such a beautiful view of the world, is there something that you are thinking about for the next stage? Like, what is your mission in the next 20 years?
And answer that in 30 seconds. Well, my mission is to keep on doing what I'm doing, whether it changes, whether I move, whether my career takes a turn, that always be working with people, always be moving people forward to the next step, always inspiring people. That's what I want to do. I don't need to be, have some big title, or I really like working with the people. I'm a people person. And if I know that I put a smile on someone's face, if I know that I made someone laugh, it's a good day.
And you've done that in your family, you've done that in our community, and as a friend, you've done that with me. So we are coming towards the end of this podcast, and there is an opportunity with each of my guests to have you give some insight into things that drive you. So I'm wondering if there is a book or a television show or something that you have been binging through this period of the pandemic that has given you a little bit of insight that you want to share with my guests.
There's a book that I've started reading, and I really honestly haven't had a lot of time to read. Although I did, when I knew that we were going to be shut down, I bought a stack of books. So I'm still working on that stack. But there's a book by, it's a book like this thick about the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And I'm not a religious person. I'm not. Was brought up conservative. I was, I'm very, very I'm very Jewish, but I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm a religious person. I'm
not observant.
I'm not. Okay, let's cut that out too. Blah, blah, blah. Cut. I'm reading a book by. I forget who the author is, but it's a book like this thick about Menachem Schneerson. And I just love the perspective on life. I love his positivity. I love, one of his quotes is, think good, it'll be good, something like that. And it just simple little quips like that. The heart, the purest heart, the purest soul, the whole idea that every person is important, that every person has a lesson to teach, and you can give to everybody. And that I love reading about him. I think that's the one. That's a book that's really inspired me. And look, I've been home like everybody else. I've just started back to work, and it's been tough. I'm in the same boat as everybody else, and I've had mostly good days, but a few bad days too. You got to feel it, and then you got to get through it and know that tomorrow's another day. So his book is really helpful.
I don't think that this conversation about the book is so far away from our conversation earlier about your experiences, because if you consider the message of Hasidic Judaism, it is to access the joy and access that which motivates us to be the best versions of ourselves. And what you've shared with our listeners today is that although it was a moment in life that you didn't expect, your choice was to find the good and find the opportunity to change so that you can be here for your children and your grandchildren, your husband, your friends, and our community. And I will say, on a personal note, we are so grateful for the gifts that you have given to our community. Lisa, I'm so
Thanks, John.
thankful you've been on this show.
Thanks for having me. I love our friendship, and thanks for having me as one of your guests. I feel very privileged.
So today we welcomed Lisa Soble Siegmann, the Director of Innovation, Collaboration, and Education at the Jewish Community Center of Metro Detroit in West Bloomfield, Michigan. We are excited to have shared with all of you the story of her experience with the BRCA-1 gene, and looking forward to future conversations with additional guests. Please continue to join us as we explore the moments that have changed the lives of people in our community. Until then, l'chaim.